John Hadaller.
John Hadaller.
Hadaller, yeah.
And how old are you, John?
I'm only 98.
Only 98, that's awesome.
That's all.
And you're a veteran, thank you, World War I.
What?
You're a World War II. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Not that old.
not World War I, World War II.
World War II.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
And I was sent over when they were starting to invade Okinawa. I was over there on the invasion, and I operated landing craft, and I delivered troops from ship to shore.
Wow.
And that's all.
That's all.
Very boring.
Where was he a baker?
No. He was in the, before that he was in the CCCs.
Oh yeah.
Conservation.
CCC camp.
Civilian Conservation Corps.
Oh, wow.
Up here at Cispus Camp.
Oh, okay.
You heard about them?
I didn't.
Well, CCC was set up in started out in the early 1900s by Roosevelt, and it was put up all these camps over the U.S. to get people off the street and give them work. And so there was, I don't know how many there was in the U.S., but in Washington State there was 29 camps, and there was 200 in each camp, plus the officers and overhead. So as soon as I could get in there, we had to be 17 to 25 and unmarried. So as soon as I was 17, I got in there and I volunteered for a KP. Well, that didn't last very long because I started helping the guy that was the baker in there. So when he left, I got the job baking for them 200 plus, on a wood cook stove, one oven. And then before I was 18, I had transferred into cook because it paid more money, and then we worked a week on and a week off, so that was a lot better. So that's
how much money he was making.
How much money did you make?
I was in there for 2 years. That was the limit.
How much money did you make?
How many what?
How much money did you make?
Well, you started out with $30 a month, and the baker got 36, and the cook got 45. So that was big money back then.
And some of it they had to send back home.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
How many kids did you end up having? How many children?
Did I have? I just had one.
The most important one.
Yeah.
Well, you look fabulous for 98.
Well,
You got some good genes.
Well, thank you.
I love it. Thank you very much for being here.
What?
Thank you for being here.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
I know.
Yeah.
Dickinson, and she married him at 18 and he was almost 50. Wow. So this is his family. And then my mom married my dad, Roy, and they adopted me. And then he already had 4 children, so this is 3 of them. The other one had passed on, and then have several kids. And then she married, after my dad died, she married Grandpa Jack. And
my name is John Dennis Hadaller. and I go by Dennis or Denny, my friends, and so
When were you born?
I was born in 1927, and so
Where at?
on Alaska. Then we had a stump ranch out here, but between Ethel and Salcombe, and that's where I grew up. And
How about your dad?
my dad worked at a sawmill on Alaska for 22 years, and raised us 4 kids. And at the same time, we developed that stump land after they got done logging into grass fields and had cattle, so they'd have something to eat. And I can remember the first logging trucks that went from west of Salcombe here to the east. The sawmill was down in Salcombe, and that's the first log trucks that were ever on Highway 12. And Highway 12 was just a rock road, crooked, and it happened to be when my dad was growing up, which at Mossy Rock, when they went to Chehalis from here, it was a all-day trip from here to Chehalis, and then eastward was an all-day trip. And they used to walk the turkeys and pigs to the sale over at the railroad in Napa Line, and so I saw a lot of changes.
They walked the turkeys.
Yeah, and the pigs. Yeah, because that's all they had. And I was very lucky. There was a piece of land next to where I, as a child, was raised, and I always told my folks I was going to buy that place. Well, after 30 or 40 years, I finally bought that 198 acres. So now I put together 313 acres, all in one block, across from my truck shop there. And I was in the logging business and for 30 years, and so we logged all over Southwest Washington, and worked for the railroad, had a lot of timber, and all my friends that were logging couldn't figure out why I wasn't giving them any competition anymore, but I had made a deal with Burlington Northern to log their timber, and so I was the #1 logger in Southwest Washington. And I did that for 20 years, and so it was real good. And so timber is no different than you planting corn and there, but you get a crop back of corn in about 8 months. But with timber, it takes 40 years to get a crop.
So you need a lot of acres.
Yeah. So
And how many kids do you have?
children, I have 2 daughters, wonderful daughters, and a son,
Nice.
and wonderful son. And
Grandkids?
How many grandkids?
a
lot of grandkids?
Yeah,
You're a
and
blessed man.
yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the politics of my friends. When I quit logging, they said, "You can't retire. You got to be a county commissioner." So I filed for that. They paid all the advertising, signs, everything, and so I did 8 years, and then I had a health problem with vertigo, and so I thought this is time.
8 years as county commissioner.
Yeah. And I really like
Mossy
it.
Rock? Or?
Yeah, no, in Chehalis.
Oh, okay.
That's where the county seat is.
Okay.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. Helped a lot of people, and I would have ran more, but then when I was starting to have that vertigo, I said it's time to.
So, what's your biggest advice for getting to the age you are? Because you look fabulous.
Well, I don't know, because I chased girls and did a little drinking once in a while, but but I understood financial figures real well, and some legal work. So.
And hard work, drinking, and girls. Okay, that's what I heard. No wonder you made it to county commissioner, baby.
Yeah, wonder I'm alive.
Thank you very much. Bill Newcomer, cousin. Oh, he's a cousin.
Ready, on your mark, go! Almost done, almost. Yeah, boys are great.
Bozart, but I was a Hadaller. And after high school, I enlisted in the Cadet Nurse Corps and served for 3 years. And during that time, we had to obtain a nursing degree, a 4-year nursing degree in 3 years. We really worked hard. And then, of course, I met my husband. And
what was his name?
His name is John Bozart. He wanted me to drop out, but you know, they really wouldn't.
Right.
You have to have a real serious reason to drop out. And I told him, no, I worked hard for 2 years. I'm going to work 1 more year yet to get my degree. And so he was willing to wait. So as soon as I got my diploma, though, 2 weeks later we were married.
That is wonderful.
Yeah. So,
how many kiddos?
We have 3 sons and 2 daughters. Raised them in Edmonds, and had our own little business after he retired. We were in the nursery business, and then when he no longer could work, because he retired after 40 years or 42 years working for Chevron, and then we moved back to Mossy Rock. So I kind of made a circle, coming back home to die, I guess.
You're here.
I
Look
know.
at that. And have you been to all the reunions?
Yes, I have.
So all 45, is that
yep,
right?
Yes.
45 years.
Yes, we have been.
It's changed a little bit.
Quite a bit over the century. Well, when you get this old, you can see all those changes. Oh, even in nursing. Oh my, yes.
Yes, wonderful. So do you have a secret to getting this age? Because, I mean, you look fabulous.
Well, thank you for your compliment. I really don't have a secret. It's to be happy, and I pray a lot. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Nice.
I don't know
I love it.
what the secret really would be. I think it's something special for each one that wants to get old.
Nice.
You have your own little secret.
Thank you.
Like that?
because nobody's got time to build it like that, guys. You won't find them anywhere but the Hadaller Union right here. And that if I don't hear this in here, somebody give it now. Give $100. 160 I got. 70 now. 70 here now. 80. 80 bucks. 80 here. 70 bid now. 80. 80. That if I don't hear them. 80 here. 80. That if I don't hear them. 80. Thank you. 15. That if I don't hear them. 115 now through. Last call, ladies and gentlemen. $115 now. Hyundai. That I don't hear. That I don't hear. Is that a yeah? 135. I got 130 here. You got to be 135. What about you guys over here? 135. Jason buys for 150.
We're carrying on with my sister-in-law now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll get.
He's in trouble. Okay, I'm Harold Hadaller. I'm the middle of 9 children of the Joe Hadaller family. 4 children older than me, 3 girls, and a boy, Herman. He just passed away this past last year. And there's 4 girls younger than me, which are all still living. I was born in 1936, and the oldest of the children was born somewhere around 1930, I would guess. My mother came from Germany, and she came in as a request from my grandpa. He needed a girl to work on the farm, and Germany was accustomed to have a girl as a cow maid that worked in the barns and in the fields, see. So he brought one here from Germany, see. So there were a bunch of boys on the farm, my dad's brothers and all that, and of course my dad, and somehow my dad eyed my mother, and they ended up getting together, and they got married, see. And there was a little problem with that as far as the farm went, and I guess as the story goes, that the day they got married, there was a big fight because Grandpa gave the farm to my dad and not the other boys, and there must have been about 6 other boys or something like that. See? So jealousy set in on that was the cause of that, so that kind of ended that, you know, and Dad had the farm, and the brothers, I guess, left kind of mad at him, you know. And so I grew up on the farm, but there's a little more to the story there. My dad, now he had his woman, see? And then 5 of his brothers, one of them went to Eastern Washington then and got a job on the farm. And there was a lot of girls over there, that one farm. And so the next year he comes back home and he tells his brothers, hey, there's a lot of girls on that farm and I'm going back over there. So 4 of the other brothers came along with them, and so 5 of the brothers are over there, and they all had 5 girls then. So after that then, so there's a big weddings of 5 brothers marrying 5 girls. And this was a completely big thing in the whole country here. Hollywood wanted to make a movie of this, see? But Granddad, being conservative, he wanted no part of that, so there was no movie made of that. So anyway, life went on, and I grew up on the farm, and a lot of work. We had the old binder, you know, had to make chocks in the field and stand up the bundles and all this sort of things. And I was just a little kid then, and Mom was out in the field working just like everybody else. And then they come around with the wagon and put the bundles on the wagon, and then we haul them into where the threshing machine was, and then you threw them in the threshing machine. And one day, Dad, I guess, got a little too close to the threshing machine, and there's someone in there, and choom, he chopped it off, part of it, yeah.
Oh, was that
So,
real?
yeah, that was for real, and ever after that, he had kind of a chicken toe there, and a little nail came out of there, it looked just like a nail on a chicken. And he was always carving it, you know. I don't know if you remember that, Barbara, or not. Yeah, just, he always kept the shape like a chicken, you know.
That's a good one.
So anyway, we got through this old time of stuff, you know, and farms progressed to a more modern thing. And I remember one time Dad left for a while him and his Mom was having marriage problems, and so Mom come to me and said, well, we got to get the hay in on our own, and neighbors were helping, and I, being a modern guy, went through the FAA classes over in the school and decided I'd bale it, and Dad always hauled it in loose. So this year I hired a baler, and they come in and baled it, and we put it all in record time, you know. $5 a ton or whatever we paid. And Dad come back after 5 months and he saw that and no thank you on that. Spent too much money in baling the hay. Well, it turns out about 2 years later, guess who got himself a baler? My dad did.
Well, that was his idea, right?
That's his idea then.
And another event occurred. Dad hated John Deere's wheel tractors. They were death. They're going to tip you over, raise up, and or dangerous. There's been a lot of accidents with wheel tractors. And the John Deere's were especially bad because their engines, they go put, 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 you know, the John Deere sound. He wouldn't have one of them around. So, so anyway, we had horses running our mowing machine, you know, and my brother Herman, her husband, he was out mowing one day, and there's a lot of molehills in the field, and the mower got clogged up, so he stopped the horses and went out and jumped off and goes clear out the molehill from the sickle bar, see? Well, about that time a rabbit jumped out. The horses spooked, and off the horses took. Of course, they were hooked to the mowing machine, so there went the mowing machine. And the horses only know to go in one place, and that's to the barn. Well, to the barn, there's several gates they got to go through. So part of the mowing machine was at this gate, another part was at that gate, and time they got to the barn, all there was a little tongue to pull between the two horses in the barn. So there went the mowing machine. So,
Buy a tractor after that?
well, not quite there yet, close to it. Then the next year, Dad borrowed his brother Matt's mowing machine, see, to pull behind the horses. And I guess Dad had some thinking about that, but one day I was working behind the barn, working on something Dad had me doing, and all of a sudden I hear put, 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 coming up the road. I looked again, there's a green put, 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 coming up the road. The guy comes to a stop and he says, "Where do you want this?" I said, "You better get this out of here." I said, "Dad wouldn't have one of these things on this place, you know." I said, "Where are you going with it?" He said, "Well, right here." He says, "Your dad was in here last week and ordered it." I said, "You got to be kidding me." About that time, I was happy as anyone could be. We got a wheel tractor now. A whole bunch of dents on the roof of my dad's truck.
Yes, my son brought a buddy down in the summer from Seattle and to spend some time with Grandpa. And he was about 13 maybe, certainly not driving age, but thinking that he could, you know. And so this was a big old heavy Dodge truck with a long bed, and it was a real heavy machine, you know. So he took it on up the hill, he and his friend. I think Grandpa wasn't home, but he let him drive it around. But he went way up and turned around on a logging road and came down, but then he couldn't make the turn, and so it rolled over, and the boys were really lucky. They didn't get hurt, but the truck did. So, and Grandpa, nobody confessed to us for a long time that we thought it was, I think it was Grandpa's German housekeeper that had done this, is what the story went. And so they protected the boys until, you know, all the heat was off. And so.
You believed this? You believed it was the German housekeeper?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
As far as you know.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah. And so we, that's the way the story went. And finally, years later, they confessed that it had been our boys, you know, that had done it. And Grandpa was so good, he never really got angry. He just, I mean, it was almost new truck. And so that truck became an icon at the farm. It was held together with baling twine and wire and any old thing that was there on the farm to make it look good again, but it really didn't.
Never looked the same.
Never looked the same. And it finally hit the junk pile after Grandpa passed away, and my husband drove it for a while and finally junked it. Anyway, I was married to Herman for 57 years.
And Herman was
his brother.
3 years older.
The only brother.
The only brother.
And so anyway, we lived in Seattle, and he surveyed up there for 30 years. And I was from Seattle. And so then after we retired, we came down to help Grandpa make hay and stuff, and we'd come and go. And then about 3 years later, we sold our house up
Wasn't
north.
he about 55 then we retired?
Yeah, he retired at 55.
Young
So
age.
he was, you know, and so then we came down and lived permanently down there with Grandpa. until he passed away, and then we inherited the farm, and now Herman passed away. So now I'm on the homestead.
You have the farm.
I have the farm. But I take a lot of pictures of the homestead and post them on Facebook so people can see what goes on, people that don't get to come real often, you know. And the reunions were always held there until this one. One interesting thing I'd like to say is Herman passed away in the same house that he was born in.
Really?
Pretty unusual, even though he had spent time away. But after we came back, we were there from 90, I'd say it was, till last year, you know.
All but the last 2 kids were born in the house. I was born in that house. And I almost died. And they put me on the wood oven door. They opened up the door, laid it down, and that was my incubator. Wow. Yeah.
Pretty ingenious.
Keep me warm, you know.
Wow.
Lawrence Hadaller. I'm one of the 3rd generation of the Hadallers.
Okay.
My dad was the baby of the family.
So you grew up on the
and
farm.
my mother was the baby of her family.
Okay.
And 5 brothers married 5 sisters.
Yeah. When were you born?
December 23rd, 1932.
Oh, you were a Christmas baby.
Yeah, it was good. I got all them presents. Yeah, that was great. My godparents, I upset the whole chain in my family when I was a kid. They were envious of me.
Oh, that's good.
And that was Louis and Min Hadaller were my godparents.
Okay.
And they were wonderful. And all my aunts and uncles were wonderful. And I knew them, stayed at their place when I was a young sailor. I'd drop in, we'd have dinner, everything. It was marvelous. There were 4 of us in our family, and we moved around quite a bit because Dad was an independent. He didn't want to work for a company very much, although he did work for Caterpillar and Chehalis and John Deere during the war. But after that, he wanted to be independent, so he was a mechanic, a diesel mechanic, and a welder and all that stuff, so he had his own shop the remainder of his life.
So when you were younger, did you work in that shop with him?
Oh yeah, I had to do. He had me with slave labor, doing the heads on, cleaning the heads on the, you know, the cylinder heads on and stuff. And during that time we did batteries, redid batteries, because during the war you couldn't get a battery hardly, so I had to take the stuff off of it, and then he put the acid and the stuff in and sealed them back up, and you know, generated their juice and sold them, and or gave them away or put them in his vehicles, whatever the hell he was doing.
How old were you then when all this was going on?
Probably 10, 11, something.
10, 11, and you worked in the shop with him at 10 years
After
old?
school.
After school.
I was never a good student. You can understand, because the folks wouldn't let me have homework. You had to do jobs. First came the jobs, then You know, so I had problems in school, but I had some magnificent teachers that I think I was 7th grade. I had this magnificent teacher that took me for an hour every day when the other kids were having study hall. And so I got my first B. I was CD. That was my name, hell. Yeah, I went 17, I went into the Navy. I wanted, the folks never had any retirement or anything, no hospital, you know, coverage or anything. And I wanted those two things, retirement and medical. So I did a total of 40 years in the Navy. Well, I did 22 active, and then another 20 with civil service. They wanted me because I was what they call an expert in food service. And during that period of time, I had to have my budget approved at the Senate, so I had to go to the Senate once a year for Antarctic. I was in charge of all the food for Operation Deep Freeze, which is Antarctic. We went down during the summer, which meant September to February. And then I came back to Rhode Island, the naval base there, and ordered all the provisions. 2 ships of provisions. They gave me a little over $2 million for food at that time, and that was in the 60s.
So for how many people were stationed there?
About 2,800 during the summer. During the winter, maybe 100, which they called winter overs, you know, because it was black. Yeah. When that sun goes down, you got 24 hours of sun from September to February. After that, it's pitch dark. They had quite a few scientists come down there, and they were checking like for fleas and, you know, trails and all this kind of stuff, and all the different graduation of the snow, how it melted, and the temperatures and all this stuff.
So it was a science mission.
Yeah, basically that's what it was, yeah. And I was in Korea and Vietnam and Cambodia doing a little fighting, and the ship I was on ran aground in Vung Tau, and we were there about 3 days until we could get it off, and we lost some divers there because the snakes got them. You know, yeah, poisonous snakes there. There are a lot of poisonous snakes on that in Vietnam, Cambodia area, you know, in that area, yeah. So, but overall, it's very, and I was a food specialist, see, that's the thing. I wanted to be the best I could, and I'm still doing cakes.
Are you?
Wedding cakes, ice carvings, all that kind of stuff. That's what I do.
You have a business now?
No.
Do that, or you just do it?
I do it just to make people happy. I love everybody. That's it. You know, even my doctors. I send them a cake twice a year. Thank you for keeping me out of the dirt. You know, huh? And it makes them smile. Yeah, decorate them, you know, make it look nice, you know. Quarter sheet cakes usually. Yeah, my life is fantastic.
They want to keep you around, keep getting more cakes.
Well, I don't know that, but you know, they've been very good to me. I've had about 9 major operations in my life. So I've had just about everything, you know. I had heart surgery. I'm celebrating 30 years after triple bypass surgery.
Good for you.
Yeah. And, you know, they work on me and send me home. And I go back to work, fooling around. You know, mowing lawns and for the widows and stuff. And, you know, just, I have a nursery. I'm still working my nursery and selling a few plants. You know, I'm a cheap $2. You know, I'm a $2. You know, 1 gallon, yeah, 1 gallon is $2. Whether it's, you know, Bougainvillea teas or whatever, you know, yeah. and small palm trees.
So where do you live now that you're out of
I live 12 miles out of Hilo, Hawaii. Yeah. And the reason I'm there is because my wife, when I was a young sailor, got off the airplane in Pearl Harbor and said, "This is our home. And what you gonna do now, huh?" Yeah, you're staying there, yeah. Well, I went, fought a few wars and stuff, and this and that, but she got to have her dream. And I think that was very important. And I think that extended her life, because she had a few medical problems. And I lost her 14 years ago, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. And so you've stayed there since then, since she passed away?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I was in Kwajalein for 5.5 years. Our Navy missile, military missile place from Vandenberg, California to there. We tested all the missiles out. I went there in '79 as a civilian. Well, I have three children. My wife and myself adopted one Hawaiian baby and 2 Indians. The Hawaiian baby was in Hawaii, and the other 2 were from the state of Maine when I was stationed at a commissary store in northeastern Maine at a naval base there. And it's been good. I have one older son born to us, and he's a senior citizen now, hell.
Grandkids?
We got quite a few grandkids. I think there's 8. And I think there's 1, 2, 3 great grandkids. And my life is fantastic because they're all so nice to me. They call me up or they send me pictures on my cellular telephone. I send them pictures. It's I have a real nice life. Yeah. I got no complaints.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Anything else?
Dave, what do you plan on doing the rest of your life?
Playing accordion. No. No, I'd like to live another 20 years if I can do something good for somebody, And that's my whole thing. Every day I want to do something for somebody good. And I feel better,
How many yards do you mow a week?
Right now I'm only doing 8 a month now. I used to do 20. But hospitalization, back and forth, I'm down to 8.
Do you have any family in Hawaii there with you?
No. Well, everybody's my family. I mean, hell. What can I say? Everybody's gorgeous. Kids are gorgeous, grandkids are gorgeous, great-grandkids are gorgeous. Everybody's gorgeous, and friends are gorgeous. All my relatives are gorgeous.
What's the key to living a good life? Is there any key?
Love everybody. You don't have a stomach ache or a headache. Yeah. And it takes something to do that. To block out those little irritations that you might have. Like a policeman giving you a ticket, huh? Or somebody running into your truck. And God hasn't called my number yet. That could be the big thing.
Nobody lost your phone number.
And I go to church all the time, I sing to the choir, and this and that.
Think you'll get married again?
No.
No?
I haven't found a rich widow. What the hell is this, huh? Not that I couldn't afford a wife, and it brings a lot of problems up when you get married again. Her family, your family, it could be, I don't think it's that good, And look at my age, hell.
Have you
A hot mama would be nice in bed, though. I mean, hey, no kidding. You gotta be honest about life. Hell, yeah, hell. Gotta have fun. Gotta laugh a lot.
And their pants is down at the bar. Probably drinking coffee, smoke a big Cuban cigar. Well, I know I had it close. If you win, you get your shot if it all made of gold. But if you lose, that will get your soul.